please, that would be excellent, and keep on mute throughout. We're literally going to have speaker videos on for this, so thank you to all of us who've joined. We have started recording the meeting, so I hope that's okay with you. If it's not, I'm afraid you'll have to leave. If you've got your camera on, please switch it off. I can see one that's on Hilary Friend. If you could switch your camera off, please. Otherwise, if your camera is on, you'll be out there for the whole world to see on YouTube forever, which you might want, but you might not. Okay, well, look, it's just after 5:30. People will keep joining us in dribs and drabs, but I think we will start. So good afternoon, everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely summer. This is the first of our autumn webinars run by the Community Planning Alliance. And I think it's going to be a really good one. We've got 3 excellent speakers. They're all normal people. They're campaigners just like you or I, who are out there day in, day out, fighting for sites that are precious to them. And they're going to tell us all about why it's important to record wildlife and how best to do it. So our first speaker is Lisa Phipps. She is part of Keep Nethercote Rural, which is based in Oxfordshire near Banbury. And there's a site there the council want to put in the local plan, 165 acres for a commercial development. Lisa will be followed by the double act of Claire Baker and Sandra Fretwell-Smith, who are based up in Sheffield, members of Owlthorpe Fields Action Group, which was set up to fight a housing development on 3 rewilded sites. Unfortunately, one part of the site did gain planning permission, but they've had some great success recently due to bioblitzing, all the hard work they've done, in that a big chunk of the site is now a local wildlife site. So what we'll do is we will let Lisa speak about her slides, then we'll pass on to Claire and Sandra. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, and we'll be doing all the questions at the end to make it easier and in case some of the things get covered. So final reminder, please put your cameras off and be on mute if you're not. And thank you to our speakers. Over to Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. So I'm going to talk quite quickly because there's so much to tell you all about, all that we've been finding out about how to go about recording the biodiversity around us, often called bioblitzing. So I'm going to just read this information. This is from our local Wild Oxfordshire, and this is a really good example of what we're doing. So wildlife conservation relies on data, knowing where particular species are, where they've been lost and where they might potentially be at risk, informs efforts to protect them from impacts of development, changing land use and habitat loss. This information can also help identify potential hotspots where species might thrive in future, where efforts to restore and enhance habitat should be focused, or where species reintroduction programmes may have the most chance of success. So your local environmental record centre, LERCs, are the hubs for this information. They hold the records collected by local wildlife groups, naturalists like ourselves, ecologists and researchers, and passing them back to the information back to the people that need them. So this will ensure that local decisions about planning and development, sustainable land management, research and conservation are driven by robust data. And these record centres need your help in order to gather the data. Everyone can play a part in the submitting of wildlife observations to your local environmental recording centre. And I'm going to talk about why it's actually important that you do so, and by submitting your observations will mean that they appear on the official record that's consulted by the planning authorities and used by other parties too to track the changes in distribution and abundance. So you'll see my big banner, and I'm going to keep harping on about this. It's so important that any records, any observations that you're making, however you record them, that it ends up with your local environmental record centre. So what does recording in a BioBlitz mean? So essentially, you're going to take 3 steps. You're going to observe what you see around you just when you're out and about. You're going to note where you saw it, when you saw it, what you saw, how much you saw, and you're going to try and collect some evidence, ideally a really clear photograph. So then your observation is going to be verified by an expert in the relevant species that you've recorded, and your observation is entered as a record. So really straightforward. I'm not going to talk a lot about the National Biodiversity Network Atlas, but I just felt that they were worthy of a mention. So the National Biodiversity Network Atlas are actually trying to provide a national source of all the wildlife records. Historically, all of the local environmental record centres were all formed and set up independently, so they all have slightly different systems, slightly different working processes, and so as you can imagine, to bring those all together is what a lot of people have referred to as a developing relationship. But hopefully in time the National Biodiversity Network Atlas will actually bring together all of the records from all of the local record centres. So again, just a reminder that it's important, much as they're working towards pulling it all together, that it's your local environmental record centre that is important. So why is it important that you record? So of course we're on a webinar hosted by Community Planning Alliance. So of course most of our motivation, or at least our initial why we started recording, will be due to protecting the green spaces around us. But you've also got the fact that once you've created a record, once that's lodged with your local environmental record centre, that record will be there for all of the all of eternity, for the future. So who knows in the future what species that are common today may actually be rare, and it may be useful to have that information of where it once were. So it ensures as many species as possible are documented in an official place. So of course, if it was just left to the experts in each species, then that means that there's only so much that they can physically record, so much that they can physically see. So in effect, what's called a citizen scientist, just as everyday people actually contributing to those records helps to get more documented. So there's less reliance on ecological studies. So of course we all know when a developer is looking to put in a planning application, they will in most cases they will employ a consultant, somebody expert or multiple people's expert in different fields to record what is there. So with the best will in the world, they can only record what they see at the time of their field trips. And even if they take a few field trips, you have seasonal variations. So for example, here in Nethercote in the spring, the whole lane is a whole blanket of snowdrops and bluebells, but you come to do a visit in the summer and you don't see any of that, and it's not because for any reason other than it's not present at that time of year. But if you actually did a visit in the spring, when you would see the blue drops and the snowdrops and bluebells and the snowdrops, sorry, you wouldn't see the butterflies that we have now. So it just means as well that you have the whole year, all the seasonal variations, everything is recorded and nothing's missed. So of course it is useful, and it is used when assessing development. As we know, the planning authority will consult, and again, it's sorry to keep stressing it, but it's the local environmental record centre who they will be consulting with. So as a couple of people on our Twitter feed are always saying, if what you see is not logged with your local environmental record centre, then it might as well not exist. And actually, in practice, that is very true. When it comes to the stage of being threatened with development, lots of people will say, but we have this, we have bats, we have badgers, and we have this present. But actually, if it's not recorded, then there's no evidence of that. And you saying in your objection, this is present, won't be sufficient. You really need to have those records with the local environmental record centre. Sorry. Yes, increased independence of records. So again, the more people that are observing, the less reliance there is on any manipulation of anything that's seen. Because if lots of people have seen something and recorded it, then it's harder for somebody to say. For example, there's a village that I remember reading about on social media quite early on in our research, where they have a resident owl, and everyone knew that the owl was there, but when the ecologist consultant came to do the field trip, they saw the owl and they saw it flying over, and there was no evidence of it holding territory. So again, the more people that are actually contributing to the records, then the more independent they are. And of course, as well as we may be attempting to protect our green space by recording officially what is there, but of course you are also helping with any species specific research, because those records will be there for those people too. So what to record then? Basically everything, any living thing that you see in the wild or around you, you should be recording. So flora, mammals, birds, trees, mollusks, insects, pollinators, all instances. So don't just think, oh yes, I recorded that yesterday, so I don't need to ever record again. Going back to the owl scenario, of course, if everybody had recorded all the time that they saw, then it would be very obvious that that owl was holding territory. So it's important that we keep recording all the instances. And also you should record everything that you see, even if you think it's common. Don't spend your time looking for some magical thing you think is going to sort of magically evaporate the developer's interest. It's about recording everything, even if it's a common, we have dandelions and nettles, all of those things. One of the other things which Claire and Sandra are going to talk about afterwards, I believe, is some of the other use of the information, as well as actually recording what is present, is to calculate things like the species richness, which is how many species that are present per square metre, biodiversity. So to get accurate calculations for those types of things, the people that are working those calculations out need to know exactly how many species are present. So absolutely anything that you see, you should be recording. So what will you actually do? So a bit more sort of like in depth of our sort of 3 stages earlier. And again, a reminder that when you are doing this, you must follow the flow of your data to make sure that it's going to end up with the record centre. So firstly, you're going to be observant to what you see around you. It's up to you, and depending on how much time, how much interest that you have in it, you could just look at species that interest you, things that you think are important, or you could just record everything. So you need to take a photo of what you see so that it can be verified. And of course, the clearer the photo and the more angles, if appropriate, then the better chance there's going to be of an expert in that species being able to verify that it was indeed what you saw. Now, what you'll find if you have a smartphone, in the camera settings, that you have a GPS function. If you turn that on, your camera, when it takes the photo, will record the location, the GPS, as well as the date, and that can help when you're uploading in bulk to some of the apps. So you'll need to identify accurately what you've seen, and depending on which app you use, you'll have you could have some help with this. But there's lots of apps and forums to help you. Lots of books available. I think we've now got the whole collection of the Collins series, and so you're going to, like we talked about earlier, you're going to record what you saw, the abundance, date and location, and you're going to upload your photo to wherever you decide to actually make your records. So as well as contributing, it can be very educational, because you're submitting to an official source, you obviously spend the time to actually find out definitively what it is that you've seen. So it's also lots of fun, gets you out in nature, and it can be a little bit addictive. I do find it hard to walk out of our garden and not spot something that I want to record. So how to record, so you know now what you're going to do. There's lots of different ways, and again, I'm not going to go into a lot of the practical how-tos because Claire and Sandra are going to cover this, but the ones that we use predominantly are iRecord and iNaturalist. Again, any level of experience can contribute. It doesn't matter if you're a complete novice, your records will be verified by an expert. So also you will find that there's some species specific studies. So some examples of this are Hedgehog Street by the People's Trust for Endangered Species, where they ask you to record sightings of hedgehogs. Local badger groups have quite often have calls out for information. You've got iButterfly, Ancient Tree Inventory by the Woodland Trust for specifically for trees. If you are contributing to any of these specific studies, then again you should check whether that information does filter through to the local record centre. You can use a combination, and we use a combination of the two, but the most important thing is that the duplication of records will cause lots of work for the record centre, which obviously we want to avoid because they've already got lots to do and work very hard already. So just looking at the reasons why we use iRecord and iNaturalist. So again, you don't necessarily need to choose one or the other. We personally record in iRecord, but for our Bioblitzes for further afield, we find that we get more engagement from iNaturalist. So again, as long as you follow the flow of the data, make sure it ends up with your record centre, then that is the most important thing. So iRecord, so this is sort of just the advantages of each, what we've personally found. So once it's verified by an expert, the records feed directly to the local record centre. Just a word on this, as I mentioned earlier, all of the record centres operate slightly differently. Our record centre only do that mass import on an annual basis, so all verified records in January each year get imported in. So throughout the year we are actually setting up to send ours directly, so they get them quicker. You will actually get feedback directly from the expert verifiers if they've got any questions, or if they say no, this is what we think it is. You actually get that feedback directly. There's more information that you can record. It's got a handy app on your smartphone. It allows people to join in the specific activities that and the Bioblitzes, but it is difficult for members to see, whereas the iNaturalist is very sort of like colourful, lots of pictures, lots of information, which does encourage people to take part. It has a function that allows sensitive species to be protected. So any species that are deemed sort of sensitive, for example, if you recorded a badger, it would automatically blur the location, which just means that anyone looking through the records can't find out exactly where it was. But you may feel there may be something specific in your area why you feel that should be sensitive, and you can do that. So the speed of your record going before a verifier, again, every area is different. Every area is different for the record centre, but also for iRecord. You will find different areas have different active verifiers, and so you need to check whether all of the species that you're recording are being verified. So iNaturalist then, so once your record in iNaturalist is lodged as reaches research grade, then they regularly import across to iRecord. In iNaturalist, you have engagement with other members. Other members can agree, yes, we think that's what you saw. So especially if you're not sure, and you can also leave it blank and have other members come along. So we specifically use this for our sort of wider engagement, and then we look through the records ourselves to make sure they're all getting to research grade and they're getting imported across to iRecord. When you enter a record, you'll be given a visual example of the species that you're trying to record, so that can reduce errors. Photo recognition can help you if you're not sure what it is that you're recording. Upload the photo and it will give you some suggestions for you to check out. As I mentioned earlier, the app generally is thought of as more user friendly. The only downside that we personally have found is that some of the, once they're imported across into iRecord, they're not all getting verified. They go to different places, and talking to verifiers and looking on their forums, this can be, sometimes this is just due to sort of accuracy of the records. Again, it's one of those other evolving relationships and developing relationships. So if you have your going back to iNaturalist and the benefits from that, if you have your GPS on your camera, you can go out, take all your pictures, come home, upload them, and it will have logged where you were, so you don't have to remember or make any other records. And again, the project function on iNaturalist is very visual. People can see what they're contributing to, and of course, as we know, that can encourage more participation. So again, I'm not going to go in detail on any of the hows to, or the sort of practicalities, but this is what your screen on desktop would look like if you were recording in iRecord. So these are all the fields that you can, they're not all compulsory, and recording in iNaturalist on desktop. So you can see you've got sort of more sort of visuals, more help, so that can be very useful, especially when you're not sure what you're recording. So when iNaturalist imports to iRecord, so if you are using iNaturalist, it's really important, because again, I'm going to remind you that it's so important that any records that you're making do end up with your local record centre. That's when they will count at that point. So if you're recording in iNaturalist, it's important that you follow the flow and you check that they do go through to iRecord, because that's where they get verified and then go through to the record centre. So they need to be research grade is something that I'd already talked about. And they need to be from the UK, Isle of Man or Channel Isles. They need to have a taxon name that's matched. So pretty much certainly what we've looked at, the sort of species lists are the same. And it needs to have a record license that allows sharing. So when you actually set up your iRecord or iNaturalist account, you'll be asked if you want any licensing of your photo. Us here in Nethercote have just all set ours up that it's we have no rights over, anyone can use the photo, because that means that it's going to have the most value. So this is once your iNaturalist record reaches this status, overnight it will import into iRecord. And what we did here as well was we actually followed the flow of the data. So we set up some did some observations, made some records in iNaturalist, and we followed those through till they became research grade, and then we actually went into iRecord and we found them, so we could actually check. And this is how we found out the little bit of the issue with the verifying of the iNaturalist records. But again, your area may be different, so it's just important that whatever you're recording, whatever species you're recording, that you actually follow the flow of that data. So simply, I then went into iRecord and searched in the database for my own name as recorder. So you can see here at the top rows are ones that I have recorded directly into iRecord, and the ones where my name doesn't have a comma, and also this little logged out symbol shows that those ones were imported from iNaturalist. So we tend to look at all the records submitted by everybody to make sure that everything, everything that's being recorded is ending up at the record centre, and this is what a record in iRecord looks like. And this is one that came through from iNaturalist, so you can see it's actually saying that's come through from iNaturalist. So as you can see, you can't get the direct feedback, and this is another reason why some of the verifiers do skip the iNaturalist for verifying, because they can't ask questions of the person that's actually done the record. But again, it is a developing relationship, and I know that that's something that is looking to be overcome. So again, it's just important to follow the flow of all of the records to make sure that they end up. So I think I've pretty much sort of covered the developing relationships. It's just as I keep harping on about, the records need to end up with your local record centre. Ultimately, until they're there, they don't count. So it's just about understanding the flow of the data, understanding where something is what I would call a developing relationship, which means that things might not work exactly yet as they should do, and that's fine. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't use that. It just means that you need to understand it and make sure that you overcome it to make sure that everything does ultimately end up in the record centre, even if it means sending the records directly to the record centre yourself. So finally, I just wanted to touch on ecologist reports and local record centre. So we talked earlier about when a developer is looking to put in an application, they'll request the records from your local record centre. So one would think that it would be reasonable to assume that on the field trip, any of the species that the ecologist identifies, any observations they make, that they would feed back that to the record centre, right? Because they've made all these observations, they're ecologists, the ecology surely should be their primary motivation, but actually this doesn't happen. To be fair, of course, they are the ecologists are paid by the developers, so it would be better really if it was a mandatory requirement. That's certainly what we've sort of worked out from this. If there's a mandatory requirement, it means there's no conflict of interest there for the ecologists, that they can just that have to send their records back. But your local record centre will have a procedure to be able to extract the records from the ecologist reports that are going in as part of the planning application, but they have to be aware of them. So if you have any local plans gone in your area that have ecologist reports that are identifying species, then just make contact with your record centre. They're really sort of friendly and helpful people. These people are like sponges. They're just like, please give me all your records, and we want to know, we want to know everything that there is everywhere. So initially we sort of very much felt like, oh, we don't want to be bothering these people, but actually they're really sort of like willing to answer the questions to help you understand and to make sure that they're getting the maximum records possible. So I did do some jargon busting. I'll leave those on the slides, but I'm going to just sort of I'm just going to skip those. It's just things that you will come across that the verifiers may ask you, but they're on the slides there if you wanted to take a look at those. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I shall hand back over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was incredibly thorough. And actually, it's really good to hear that the record centres want the recordings, because I, like you, had always assumed I'd be troubling them, just some annoying person that doesn't know what I'm talking about. So that's really reassuring. So thank you. Good. All right. So do questions at the end. So Claire and Sandra, would you like to put your cameras on? Others who've got your cameras on, could you switch them off, please? I see Steve Williams and Sarah who've got theirs on. And over to Sandra and Claire. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you, Rosie and Marge, for hosting us. So I'll just kick off, and then Sandra's going to run into the main presentation. So who are we? Well, myself and Sandra are Chair and Secretary of Owlthorpe Fields Action Group, and we set ourselves up to fight housing development on 3 rewilded sites in South East Sheffield in 2018. Seems forever now, but a planning application was submitted for one of the plots we call Site E in late 2019, but this was turned down unanimously in June 2020. 2020 by our council planning committee. The developer appealed and unfortunately planning permission was granted in March 2021. The work started on the 1st September last year and is still currently ongoing, and nobody has moved in yet. So why was bioblitzing important? Well, in June 2020, when that planning application was refused, we suspected that the developer would appeal and realise that unless we could prove the wildlife value of the fields, the developer would continue to get away with saying it was just scrub land of little ecological value. So to start, we organised a community bioblitz with the aim of logging as much flora and fauna as possible. And what did it help to achieve? Well, we're still fighting to save the remaining areas of land, Site C and D, and recently we learned that the wildlife logging work that we completed over the last 2 years, including the bioblitz, has resulted in a local wildlife site designation for these 2 sites, which obviously we're thrilled about. We're now hoping that the site C and D will be designated as local green space, a formal green space, in the new Sheffield local plan, which is due out for consultation this autumn. So that's a brief introduction. I'll now pass you over to Sandra, and she will talk through the bioblitz and we'll take questions at the end. Thank you. Sandra.
Hello everybody, I hope you can hear me. So I think it's important to reiterate to start with that neither Claire nor me or anybody that's done any of this recording are professionals, and everything I'm going to present to you today is what we've learned from what we've done well and from any mistakes that we may have made and how we thought we could do it better. So bioblitz, where to start? The thing that you really need to do is plan ahead. We didn't leave ourselves enough time, so that's where we went wrong, and this is something that we've learned that you really need to do. Pick a date suitable for the species that you most want to record. I think Lisa was talking about this earlier. Different species will be around at different times of year. Even butterflies come out in different months in the summer. Birds, you will get migrant birds in the winter, and you'll get nesting birds in the summer. So you need to pick carefully when you want to do it, and you might have to do more than one. You might have to do it in the different seasons, and obviously be prepared to cancel if the weather is bad, because you know nothing's going to come out much, including people, if the weather's bad. Now, if you've got a big site, and it might be suitable to divide it up into portions. Ours was quite easy. We had 3 discrete sites, separated by road or a path, I think it was, and we divided it into sites to stop everybody going to the same place, because otherwise you're just going to get everything from one area. If your site's very big, you could do what they call a transect survey, where you get members of the public to walk a straight line down the field, and that's one option, and you can put them about 10 metres apart, but you need to separate people up a bit. Give people specific tasks. Now, I say that slightly loosely because I think you're always better asking people if they've got something they would prefer to log. For example, we had somebody who liked looking at birds, and they're not easy to record birds because they move a lot. And so we let him go off through all the sites recording birds. But if you just tell everybody to go and record everything they see, they don't look further than the nose, some people, and you need people with enthusiasm for, say, insects, bees, to be looking for those, people who are interested in plants. So give people the chance, but tell them not to exclude anything that they do see, record everything. Advertise the bioblitz far and wide via social media, Twitter, Facebook, and public, even by sorry, I can't get my words out, by word of mouth. I mean, it's quite useful if you're walking locally and you see people. Just make sure that it's known and when it's going to be. Okay, we'll move on. Excuse me a minute. Okay, I think I've lost control of the screen. Oh, here we go. Right, so you need to tell people what they are, what they've got to do. You need instructions. So we had a mantra, and at the time we were doing it, we were doing it at the same time as the Wildlife Trust. So we essentially used the same protocol that they did. So the guidance for participants: spot it, look around you, above you on the ground, in the trees, under leaves, under stones or dead wood, even in the sky. Look for any wildflowers, birds, insects, amphibians. But realistically, you're unlikely to see all of these. If you do, you're very lucky. Snap it. Well, you're going to need a photo because somebody is going to have to verify it. And it's so important, and I'll keep going on about this, but you do need a really good photograph. And this is easier said than done. I mean, insects and birds can be difficult to photograph. Plants obviously aren't going to move very far. So if you're having trouble with an insect or bird, try taking a video. You can take a screenshot of it later and identify it at your leisure. Spot it, snap it, record it. Make a note of what you're seeing and where it is. Identify it on site, or you can identify it later. You can find the coordinates on your phone, and if you're not using a phone, make a note of where it is, and you can find the coordinates online later. Sorry, I'm just having trouble getting it to move on. It won't move on. So this is what we provided the data for everybody who came out to the Bioblitz. We gave them a list of instructions and we told them what they needed to do. Some people don't like using mobiles and they brought a camera, which is fine, so long as you record exactly where it is. And there are, if you know where it is and you haven't got GPS on your camera, there is a website that you can use to identify where that is, so long as you write it down. And this is a sheet that we provided people who were using cameras to complete. What equipment do you need? Well, at a bare minimum, you will need a phone or a camera, ideally with GPS. If you haven't got GPS on your camera, as I've just said, you can find the location on a website, which I'll come to in a bit. Okay, it's not working again. I'm having trouble with the presentation. I'll try again. Oh gosh, well, it's gone. So, and if you're looking for birds, a pair of binoculars would be useful, but to be fair, you want to be looking through your camera, otherwise you'll miss it with your binoculars. And for insects, try using an upside down umbrella under a tree or a shrub and shaking it gently, or try turning over stones or rotting logs, but don't forget to put them back because that's where they live essentially. Our recommendation for data collection. Now, Lisa's already mentioned this, but I think I can't emphasize enough how useful iNaturalist is. And why iNaturalist? You might be asking why. In it, you can create a project. This is our project here, Owlthorpe Fields. That's a lovely picture of the fields there. That's our logo. And everybody who comes to the Bioblitz can upload their data onto iNaturalist. They can use either the app, which I'll show you in a minute, or they can do it on the desktop. As well as using creating a project, you can create a journal. Oops. And you can keep people informed who are part of your project or part of the Bioblitz and tell them what's been happening at the project. Everybody, it will be, if you look at the screen down here, you will be able to see what everybody's been observing, who's observed the most species and what species have been seen. As well as that, you can also view the statistics. You can see what species have been observed, how many birds, how many mammals, insects, and as well as that, you can download all your data. The data can be interrogated. You can specify which species you want to download, what dates you want to download it on, and it's exported as a CSV file. And if you don't really know much about them, it's basically an Excel spreadsheet. And that enables you to see what everybody at the Bioblitz has observed, and you can then upload data to the other recording sources that Lisa talked about, which I'll come to in a minute. The iNaturalist app, it's so user-friendly. You can download it off Google Play or the App Store, and you get this lovely view here. of all the records that anybody's put in. You can specify the area that you want the project to be in. For example, ours was in a very specific location in Sheffield, so all the observations you put in will be specific to your project. Ours is called Owlthorpe Fields Action Group, as it says there with our logo. So, what do you need to collect? I can't emphasise enough good quality photos. The more the merrier. For plants, take them from different angles and different parts of plants, including leaves, and if possible with something for scale. These are some of our lovely ones. These were posing for us, basically. I mean, they're not usually that easy to photograph mammals and birds, it has to be said. I mean, something for scale is, you really do need to do it, but I must admit I'm not the best person in the world to be saying that, because I very often forget to take my ruler out with me. But you can use a coin or anything else that you've got that's of a fixed size, and that will do. What data you need to collect, as well as decent photographs, you need a grid reference. That's absolutely essential again, because it could be from anywhere. Now the app, if you upload a photograph from your phone, if you upload a photograph from your phone, be it Google or Android or Apple, it will give you the coordinates. You can see them down at the bottom there with the red circle around them. Oops. Now I was talking earlier about grid references. If you're using a camera and you haven't got GPS on it and you know where it was, you can go onto Grid Reference Finder and you can put in a postcode, or you can put in anything that takes you into the general location. Then if you right click on where you know it is, it will tell you exactly the grid reference. Very simple to use, and it will tell you any format of location that you would want. So it's incredibly useful. I've used that many times when I haven't got a proper grid reference. As well as storing all your data, iNaturalist also gives you an option to identify your species, and it's fairly accurate if your photos are decent. This is why I mean, some people supplied us from the Bioblitz with photographs that look like they've blown their nose on the screen or something, so you do need some decent photos. So when you upload a photograph, you get the option here where it says, what did you see? And then it will have a guess at what your photo is. You can change the photo to pick your favourite one, the best one. And it's pretty good. It usually comes up with the right answer. As you can see here, it's come up with greater stitch work, and you select that as the option. In the screen on the left, I don't know if you can see my mouse, there you go. These are what you can enter. Now, in the notes, I think you want to put the abundance, how many you see. I mean, obviously you're not going to count individual flowers like you see on this picture, but you can put the size of the clump, or how many large clumps that you saw. And automatically the location is uploaded if you've got the location selected on your phone. If not, you can choose it off a map. The Wildlife Trust also does a series of free downloads. There are so many of them. There's a massive list, and we can put the link in the chat later if you want. These are some of them, and they're very useful if you've got children with you to just refer to if you see something. There are a lot more than the three I've put here. Oops. So we commissioned a professional ecology survey, and the lady that did it for us was a professional botanist, and she gave us some guidance on how to photograph flowers. So she suggested a general shot showing the entire plant in its habitat, a shot looking into the flower, a shot of underneath the flower, and a shot of the stem, and a shot of the basal leaves, and a close-up of the stem. In some cases, this isn't going to be necessary. I mean, if you've got, for example, a wood anemone, it's quite easy to identify. But if it's a difficult plant to identify, you really need to be thinking about taking lots of different photos, because you can upload a lot of photographs to iNaturalist. When it comes to grasses, a bit of a nightmare. If you're good at grasses, fine, but in some respects, I think you're better asking an expert or finding somebody that likes looking at grasses, because they are very difficult to identify. But they are so important because the local wildlife site designation that we've managed to achieve from our records has been a grassland, local wildlife site for grassland. But it does include the wildflowers as well. So all these people that have turned up your Bioblitz want to know what the results have been. They want to know what's happened. So it's a good idea to present the data to them, so that to keep them interested, and also to get them going out and recording things on a more regular basis, as we did and as Lisa's done. So I presented the data in this format, an easy to understand format, with just a pie chart of all the species on the individual sites and an overall one, and then a summary. And I also prepared a summary of the photographs. I picked a nice one that they'd all taken. These are the better ones that they produced, so that they could see. It's a photo gallery of what people recorded. I think you need to keep your participants happy. Now, Lisa's just spent a long time talking about recording data and which to use. There's a local biological record centre, which Lisa was emphasising. Nature Counts. Now this Nature Counts is our local Wildlife Sites Trust recording system. This uses the same format as iRecord, and basically Nature Counts feeds into iRecord. But also both of these feed into the NBN Atlas. So, and also as an aside, iNaturalist is now starting to feed into the NBN Atlas as well. If it achieves the research grade, which is where several people have confirmed the identity that you've already put in, then it will go into the NBN Atlas. Oops. Oh, and here I've got a short video just showing of what you can achieve if you spend some time recording. It's only a short one, but this is OAG.
Sandra, can I just ask, should there be some sound with your video?
No, but I can sing if you like.
No, that's okay. I was just double checking.
I should have put some music with it. It would have been nice. It's almost finished. So all of these of what we've recorded, just a sample. It isn't by any means all of it that we've recorded on the fields here in Owlthorpe. In summary, you need to plan meticulously and advertise it by social media, email, flyer, far and wide. Create a project in iNaturalist. It's absolutely so useful because all your data will be in one place. Everything anybody supplies will be in one place. Anybody who uses a camera can also upload it on the desktop version of iNaturalist as well. It doesn't have to be the app. But it is easier if the Bioblitz participants download the app and join the project. But don't discount observations that aren't from iNaturalist. We had our participants sent us emails with photographs and locations in. Make sure everyone knows the essentials. Take lots of good quality photos, as many as possible, and wherever, different shots of the plant. Ensure you have grid references with all your photographs. Upload your records to iRecord or Wildlife Trust recording system, or send them to the local record centre.
Sandra, sorry, can I interrupt you? My screen hasn't moved on. I don't know if anybody else hasn't.
Oh.
If it's just my laptop or whether it's.
Same for me. It's frozen on the wonderful birds
at the end of the video.
Let me go back. See, right.
Yeah,
has it moved on? Okay, so I'm going. Do you want me to go through the summary again?
No, don't worry, because I think we heard it clearly, so that's fine. Thank you.
I'll just put them up so you can read it. That's the summary for you. And thank you very much. If there's any questions, me and Claire will be happy to answer.
Thank you so much. For me, it hasn't got the summary, but never mind. You explained it very clearly, so that's fine. Well, look, I mean, that's inspirational, and actually it's lovely seeing all the photos as well. I'm quite envious you've got a bullfinch and a yellowhammer. Used to be super common, didn't they? But I haven't seen one around here for years, so they're really beautiful. So thank you very much, both of you. That was great. Now, I haven't got access to the chat. My Teams is broken, so Margie's going to check for questions in the chat and field those.
Yeah, and we've been responding to those as we've gone along, actually. But a lot of people are very impressed with the photos, Claire and Sandra, and just asking how you put those together. So maybe that's where we can start. For I don't know who put the video together.
It was me.
Yeah.
I used hang on, I'll just have a quick look because I forgot what they call it. I used a package called I forgot what they call it now. Right, PhotoPad image editor. And if you just input all the photographs to it, it puts them in a nice collage for you. It's a bit complicated. I then put them into a PowerPoint and save them as a video. It sounds really complicated, but it's not as complicated as it really seems. Yeah.
You can use PowerPoint really well as to create videos, and there's also something called Microsoft Sway. If people haven't used that, that's worth looking at. It's very, very easy to use, so that's another option. Samantha Martin is saying, my local committee is planning to host a Bioblitz. Would we be able to get a closer look at the instructions? Now, I'm assuming that we're going to make the slides available, are we?
Yes, we can be, yeah.
So we'll put those on our website and then or send them around in an email along with the link to the recording of the session, so you can listen to it all again. We had some questions early on, which I think Lisa has answered admirably. Lisa, is there anything you want to add to the answers that you've given to the early questions, which were mostly about different ways of recording, I think?
Yeah, I think, those were the type of questions, and I think the answer is because every record centre is slightly different. If you're not certain, just please ask the record centre. They'll be if ours are any example, they'll be pleased to have the question and the interest, and they'll be happy to tell you. So just sort of just drop them an email or a phone call, I would say, just to be sure. I'm sort of conscious that I know what our record centre accepts, but I'm really conscious that they're all sort of slightly different. So I think the best advice when we're looking across lots of different record centres is to just to check with them.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I'm in Manchester, and our local record centre, the Greater Manchester Ecology Unit, is very, very happy to pick up questions like that. So I'm sure the others are too. Okay. So
there's just a question from Sarah as well, who asks if someone sends you information, like if they send you a picture but they can't work out how to do it. And we've had a couple of those, so it depends. If it's just sort of like one or two, we've just entered them for them and just put a note in the comments to say who actually gave us the record. If there's a lot, we've actually helped them to set up an account so that they can actually be doing it themselves, because of course if they can do it themselves, like Sandra was talking about, it does encourage them to do more. And Joe asks as well if sightings in private gardens are helpful. So my understanding is that things like your plants and your trees aren't of any relevance if they're in your private garden, but if a bird flies into your garden, then that is then that should be recorded. So that is my understanding.
Yeah, wildlife and birds, yeah, agree.
And Lisa, Yeah. Sorry, Marge, I was going to say, and I disagreeing with Lisa, what I'd also say is that obviously if the private garden that's miles away from, like us, the development area, obviously wouldn't be necessarily helpful, but my garden's nearly adjacent to Owlthorpe Fields, so I do, you know, if I do see plants, insects, butterflies, birds in my garden, I do record them because I'm literally like 15 metres from the development boundaries. So
yeah,
you've just got to make a judgment, really.
So I've got a question. I didn't want to hold the questions, but do you have thoughts on either nighttime recording, such as I hear an owl around here most nights. Obviously can't take a photo of it, but it's here. Are you allowed to send in recordings? And Marge mentioned earlier on a chat nightingales, so bats obviously as well. Anything we can do about that?
iNaturalist has the option that you can actually upload an audio recording. So I've done that sometimes if I've been able to hear a bird but I can't see it. I have gone into iNaturalist because again, the other members of the community can listen to that recording, agree with it, so that it gets to research grade, and then it will be imported through. I think that the audio recording doesn't go through to iRecord, but obviously you've still got the evidence there somewhere in the trail. And for bats, I think Sandra mentioned in her presentation about using a video. I absolutely haven't worked out how to photograph a bat yet, so I generally video them and then sort of try and get a bit of a screenshot. I haven't been able to get one any more than that it shows that there is a bat, not specific enough, and my photography skills are very good.
No, that'd be quite challenging.
What we've done, we've got a bat detector, and on that bat detector, on the app, you can take a snapshot of the echolocation, and obviously all the different bats are always different. Yeah. So like a pipistrelle is different from a soprano pipistrelle or a nocturnal bat, and you can take what we have done is take a snap of that echolocation and put it on iNaturalist, and obviously people have then verified what the bat app has said. So we've done that, and we've done what Lisa said. I've took recordings and put them on iNaturalist, and obviously they reach research grade, and then the recording might not necessarily go through, but you have a second verification that it was what you thought it was.
Yeah.
And we do moth trapping. That's all times of day are important. So we purchased a moth trap. Don't get a commercial one because they cost a fortune, but if anybody's interested, we got a guy to make us one, and it's very basic, but it's brilliant. It captures, well, we've had over 100 different types of moths now, and we just take some deck chairs, have the moth trap out with a little like sample pot, and then we normally perhaps take a glass of wine and sit there and put the world to rights while the moths come to the trap. So, and it is good fun as well. So that's worth doing at night to get a nighttime species as well.
Brilliant, thank you.
And just so you know, I've been out for walks with our local ecology unit, the Greater Manchester Ecology Unit. We've done bat walks and recording walks. So you may find that your local recording centres will come out with you and help you to get people moving, to get some of these initiatives going. Certainly ours were happy to do that. So anyway, any other questions? I know Sarah, somebody's got the hand up. Easier if you can put them in the chat.
It was just me. I didn't want to butt in. Just about the bats. I'm on a Facebook group called the Bat Workers UK, and there's actually someone on there at the moment that's in the process of creating a website that actually converts. If you've got like an echometer, touch, etc., it can converts those videos that you've got of the sonographs, and you should be able to upload them as a mini video to iNaturalist. It's in the works at the moment, but he put it on a couple of months ago that he's asking people to basically be the guinea pigs. But I think that's the process that we might down the line be able to actually upload full sonograph videos.
Super, that's really helpful. Thanks, Samantha. Okay, so any other final questions before we close?
Okay, well, in which case I will say a huge thank you to Claire, Sandra and Lisa. I found that really interesting and very positive and very constructive. It's nice actually for groups to be able to do something that, well, it's positive in a fight, isn't it? Because often what we have to do is say no to things. So what I took from it is people should get going the sooner the better, because we're all going to face a local plan at some point, even if we're in a lull at the moment. So we might as well get out there and start recording. And if it's not recorded, it doesn't exist. So get out there and record whatever you see. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thanks.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks, Claire.